Today, I'm in Hawaii, on the island of Kauai. It's one of the oldest Hawaiian islands, thought to be 5 million years old, formed by volcanic motion long ago in the ocean. And this behind me is the Great Waimea Canyon, the Grand Canyon of the Pacific.
The Hawaiian Islands are a relatively young volcanic archipelago in the Pacific Ocean. Their warm tropical climate and pristine waters have made them one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world, as well as a paradise for an array of incredible native and introduced wildlife. Their isolation makes for one of the most ecologically unique locations on Earth.
Today, we've headed into the Highlands, to Waimea Canyon. Do you see that red soil? The name Waimea comes from the Hawaiian words meaning red water, referring to the orange strata layers that make up the canyon's steep walls. So up in the Kauaian Highlands like this, up in the mountains, you can see how wet it is. That's because Mount Waialeale, which is the tallest mountain on the island, it's nicknamed the wettest place on Earth. Gets up to 450 inches of rain every year. And the river that flows from it is what carved out that canyon you saw out there. So up here in the mountains, it gets too cold for mosquitoes, which carry the avian malaria virus, which is really terrible at wiping out the native bird populations. Mosquitoes were introduced on whaling ships back in the 1800s, and the avian malaria has just absolutely decimated local populations. So up here in the mountains where it gets colder, it's where the native birds have retreated to live in isolation. And so we're up here, hopefully, to see some native species like the honey creepers and the iwi. There's even chickens up here in the mountains. They're everywhere. I've never seen an animal as dominant as the domestic chicken.
Feral chickens are a common sight in the islands. Early Polynesian settlers introduced the red junglefowl for a food source, and now modern chickens have interbred with them and make up the population that can be seen all over Kauai. The air in here is thick as mud. It's humid and it's very wet. It's a true jungle. Not to mention slippery. We've passed multiple people. Mud all up and down.
fauna on Kauai invasive, but a lot of the flora as well. All these tall trees you can see behind you here, actually a species I'm very familiar with. Obviously they're eucalypt gum trees from back home in Australia. Most likely brought here for decorative purposes and landscaping, as many of the invasive trees and plants on Kauai are. It's called the Garden Island. Besides the noisy roosters over there, we can hear birds all around us. There's one right in here, but it's almost impossible to see them unless they move, because you can see how thick it is. Every square inch has a tree or some other type of plant in it. So out to the right of me here you can see these white shapes flying over this ravine, and these will be long-tailed white tropic birds. And what they're doing is nesting. They typically live out at sea where they'll eat fish, squids, anything like that, where they'll dive for them, but when they nest they lay one single egg up in a sort of colony on these cliffs. And mum and dad, they'll watch over it and go get food once it hatches, and it will raise up on this cliff, and this is where it will learn to fly over these thermals that come up out of the canyon.
You can see why they're named for their tails. These tropic birds undergo elaborate courtship displays in the air. The longer the tail, the more difficult it is to fly easily, so the males with the largest feathers show their ability to thrive with such a handicap. This is how the female birds will choose their partners and whose traits are best to pass on to the next generation.
Unfortunately, our hunt for more Kauaian native birds was largely unsuccessful. We did, however, get a few surprising species, like this Kauai elepaio. However, it's unfortunately become very common to see invasive birds that have taken over the landscape, as most of the natives have retreated to the highlands and are largely out of sight for most of the year. This red-crested cardinal is a native to South America and is a common sight. Endemic species, meaning only found on Hawaiian Islands, are unfortunately less frequent. Some native migratory birds, like this kalea, are easier to find. They've been known to fly 3,000 miles from Alaska every year to the tropics of Hawaii.
Many of the introduced species here are South American since they take so well to the familiar climate. Invasive plants and animals go hand in hand. Some even have relationships that benefit each other, known as symbiosis.
So what I've got here, and what you can see right above me here growing on the ends of these trees, this is the strawberry guava fruit, which is invasive and particularly harmful. As you can see, looking around, the fruit of it is just everywhere. And it's got these really small seeds that just go straight through the digestive tract. And what particularly is really good at spreading these around is pigs. And there's a lot of wild pigs feral on Kauai. And what they'll do is they'll eat these. It's one of their favorite foods, and they'll spread them around. And when they poo, that's where a new guava tree will grow, so it can help them spread even quicker than they can on their own. And they just crowd out native species of trees. Hawaii is actually only home to one native species of land mammal, the Hawaiian hoary bat, which has unfortunately become increasingly rare. However, pigs and goats have become very feral on the island and some of the most common mammals you can find these days. Kauai has fortunately been untouched by the introduction of the mongoose, which is very prevalent on other islands.
As night falls over the islands, a different cast of animals comes out to say hello.
Here, check this out. So right here, these are two African giant snails. They're one of the largest snails on Earth. They can typically get as big as your hand. They're very big, but these ones are a little bit smaller. I think we've caught them in the a bit of an intimate display here. But they're particularly harmful in Hawaii because they're invasive. And not only do they eat up to 500 different species of plants, including native ones, which means they can decimate native plant health, they also carry a parasitic worm called the rat lungworm, which unfortunately means that even if native birds and other creatures wanted to eat them, it would cause a terrible infection. And even in people, they can cause an infection. They can cause meningitis and sometimes even lead to death. So just make sure that when you handle these, if you have to handle them, wash your hands. Try and limit your time with them. They've even been known to destroy houses because they can eat the plaster and stucco off the outside of a house when they're looking for minerals such as calcium and phosphate. So we'll leave these two alone. Unfortunately, they're beautiful, beautiful snails, very large snails. It's a shame that they're so invasive. You can see it's actually chock-a-block full of them. They're everywhere. Everywhere when you walk around at night. They're just all over these plants, all over the floor, looking for anything they can find to eat. Absolutely overrun with them. Right here too. You can see here, this one's no giant, but they're pretty big as far as snails go. Bigger than your average garden snail, that's for sure. How's this? Now that's a big one. Still not as big as they can get, but that's definitely within the upper size limits of the ones I've seen around here. He's massive. You can just imagine how much plant matter he can eat in a single day. They'll do a lot of damage if they're all that size. Woo!
With that, I continued my search for the main target of the night. Found one.
Here we go. Here we've got a small cane toad. This one's still got its juvenile colours. This is definitely not as big as they can get. We're going to keep looking, see if we can find a big one, show you how big they really can get. We'll go ahead and put this guy down. Off you go, mate. Off you go. There we go. There's a good sized one. So this is a pretty typically sized cane toad. Massive, massive toads. One of the largest amphibians in the world, actually. Definitely within the top 10. These guys, obviously, very invasive. These guys are one of the most famous pests in the world. Back home, they were introduced on sugarcane farms to reduce the populations of cane beetles, which were destroying crops. And I imagine they do the exact same thing here. Just driving around the island, I've seen plenty of sugarcane, plenty of farms, people selling it out the back of their trucks and everything. I reckon these guys are brought here for the exact same thing. Now, the reason they're so deadly, right here, these big glands on the back of their shoulders here, these produce something called bufotoxin, which basically just means frog toxin, and it's toxic when ingested. So you want to make sure you're being careful when handling these guys as well. Luckily, unless you can actually see it coming out and you're touching those glands, you're not in too much trouble. Just don't lick your fingers after you hold them. Now, however, native birds like black-crowned night herons, things like that eat amphibians, they can eat these guys and they'll die, unfortunately. This one that we found is probably a female. I know that because when I was holding her, she wasn't singing to me. Males are the only ones that'll croak at me. Females, they'll be silent. And also, she's very large. Females can get a lot bigger than males. And she's definitely no shrimp, that's for sure. You can see this one. Listen to him, he's a male. Right there, he's singing to me. That's how you can tell it's a male. And you can see as well, they like to puff up like this, show me a threat display, making me think that they're bigger than they are. It's alright, I don't want to eat him anyway. I know he's toxic. And you can also see, plenty of colour variation compared to that female back there. Compared to that female back there, look how blue the colours on this one. He's basically yellow. Off he goes. Off you go, mate.
Modern landscaping and agriculture have terraformed tropical places like this into utopias for introduced cane toads with no natural predators. Golf courses and farms give them access to fresh water to lay their eggs. And the large industrial lighting is the perfect attraction for insects that they can eat.
You can only imagine how this place looked hundreds of years ago. Island ecosystems are particularly vulnerable to outside influence, and as places like this undergo rapid changes, it's up to us to make sure that we protect the last wild corners of planet Earth.
Join us next episode as we take a dive into Kauai's reefs and waterways. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.